Sup peeps, my name's Ian. I sell books on eBay and I'm wearing a hat because I'm fed up being bald. So if I'm wearing a hat, I can't be bald. I love logic. This is a wee bit of a different one. I don't have a lot of sales to talk about. There's been some good sales lately, but it's a lot of generic bundles. Ever since somebody asked or said that they didn't sell a huge amount from the kind of variation list and bundles, that's all I've been selling. Just bundles and bundles and bundles. The odd wee single interesting thing popping out. But for the most part, it's just more and more bundles. But third of the way through April, nearly, and I haven't actually done my end month summary. Not necessarily for YouTube or you guys, but I do it myself and I have a look back over what's worked in the previous month, where sales have come from, where profits have come from, just to get an idea of if there's anything I want to tweak and change moving forward into the next period, i.e. April. So I've just been having a wee look at that there just now. I thought I would share some of it with you. So if you're out looking for stuff to sell, then this will maybe give you a wee bit of a steer in the right direction. Overall, sales were up 1.7% in March over what they were in February. Considering there was like 2 days more, that ain't great. But net sales, so once postage and fees are taken out of it, was up by about 11%. So that's slightly better. Kind of indicative of the extra days in the month, if I'm being honest, not much more. And this month is doing better again. But what actually sold and what actually made money in that month, I'm scrolling through just now, just having a wee nosy. Now, a lot of this is dependent on available stock. If I had more titles available by a particular author, I may have sold even more of them. If I hadn't had as many, I wouldn't have sold as many. That's the kind of logic. There's very few authors where I have a lot more than I sell on a regular basis. James Patterson, Mr. James Patterson being one of them. But for the most part, the ones that sell well, they kind of churn through quite quickly. So if I had more of them, maybe I would sell more of them. It's difficult to know. But I'm going to look at a couple of these, share what happened with them, and let you decide what's worth it. So I've got 3 authors that all sold 30 books each last month. Lee Child, John Grisham and Wilbur Smith. But the numbers after that are a bit different. So the total sales for the 30 Lee Child books was £80.70. For the John Grisham was £93.19. And for the Wilbur Smith was £70.48. So that's like a £23 difference between Wilbur Smith all the way up to John Grisham. Why? First editions. John Grisham had a couple of first edition books in there. Lee Child, my prices in Lee Child books are slightly higher because they sell so well. I've got limited supply, so therefore I squeeze out a few pennies more from them. However, when I move down the line from there, the net sales, so Lee Child, total sales were 80 quid, net sales were 35. John Grisham, total sales were 93, net sales were 36. And Wilbur Smith, total sales of 70, the net sales were 33. Well, nearly 34 actually. So very, very close, 34, 35 and 36 pounds, regardless of what the total sales value was from selling those 30 books, which is kind of what I expect. The reason there's a difference in the selling costs is some of those bundles will have been bought where they'll have been heavier. They'll have got over the 2 kilos, so it's cost me £3 more to post a couple of bundles. And it only takes 3 bundles, and that's another tenner that you've spent on postage compared to what you haven't selling other ones. You know what I mean? So really good to see that all 3 of those made a little bit more than £1 a book return coming back the way. If I take out the buying price, so averaging about 25 to 30 pence per book, 25p I'm pretty sure we're at the moment. So 30 times 25p is what, £7.50? £7.50, so about 28 quid return on each of those as it works through. So a little less than £1 profit per book. Obviously I know there's taxes and all sorts of other expenses that come off, but you know, from the basic sale price, listing fees, postage, cost of goods, a little less than £1 a book coming back in those, so that was really good. But then I keep going down the list, and then I've got a few sitting in the 20s. So Michael Connolly, 29 Michael Connolly books sold, but for those 29 I made £39 net profit. So it's going to be roughly the same, you know, coming off for cost of goods, because it's only one book less, which leaves me at about £31.50, £32, which means more than £1 a book selling a Michael Connolly. Why? Because I don't sell Michael Connolly hardcovers in these bundles anymore. It's only the paperbacks. So by just narrowing that down to paperbacks, it shows that actually I make 10, 15, 20% more on a sale than I would if I was still shipping out the hardcovers. So that makes me think that for Lee Child, I don't have many Lee Child books left at all at the moment, to be honest, so it's not too relevant, but certainly the John Grisham and Wilbur Smith, take out the hardcovers, bundle them up separately, and just have the listings for the paperbacks, and that will increase the profits there. So only, you know, a 10% increase in £33, it's only an extra £3 a month. It's not a lot, but if I've got 100 listings like that, and they all go up by 10% on the sales, because I do it that way, then that could become a more significant amount. You know, that could be £200 or £300 across the month. So that's why I look at these numbers and think about things to see what the difference would be. So the comparator I've got there is obviously Michael Connolly. I know I don't have hardcovers in that offer, so it's only paperbacks on that listing, therefore the net sales are higher. Makes sense. Going down a wee bit further, I've got Martina Cole, sold 27 Martina Cole books. So total sales were £78, £80 for Connolly, 78 for Martina Cole. Again, with Martina Cole, I've only got paperbacks in that listing. I don't have any hardcovers included in that variation listing, and my net sales from that was £37.77. So that's kind of in line with the Connolly. 39 for Connolly, £37.77 for Martina Cole. 2 books the difference between the two. So again, it reaffirms that belief that if I take hardcovers out of the variation listings and just have it as the paperbacks, then it's more profitable per item sold, and it's a decent number of sales. I'm quite happy if I can get through 30 of them in a month. Both authors that I can pick up quite readily for a reasonable price. I've said that, I'll find none for weeks now. The next down the line, Terry Pratchett. So last month I did not have an awful lot of Terry Pratchett in stock. The last week or so I've had like 3 or 4 really good Terry Pratchett pickups. It's been a bit weird. Before that I had very little, but still 22 books sold for £27.95 in profit. Why? I know a couple of them were slightly higher valued. You know, they were first edition of the paperbacks, etc. So that pushed that value up. Didn't artificially inflate it, but it did. It doesn't mean that I can't use it to compare to the other listings that I've got running there, and it's Terry Pratchett's very much, you know, limited stock. But the next 2, 3 on the list, in fact the next 4 on the list, one of them I'm surprised is Solo Down, but we've got Leslie Pierce, Dilly Court, Richard Osman and Julia Donaldson. So 20 for Leslie, 19 for Dilly, 18 for Richard and 18 for Julia. And the numbers again at the end of this are very, very different, which surprises me. I feel like I sell a lot of Dilly Court books, but apparently only 19 last month. I think I've sold that many this month already. That resulted in £55.95 in sales and only £15.78 in net sales, you know, once the fees and the postage have been taken off of that. So that's way less than £1 a book coming back in that. Now there's no hardcovers in there, they're all paperbacks, but they're big, and I think I've had 2 or 3 bundles going out from Dilly Court where they've crept over the 2 kilo and it's cost me a lot more in postage. I think that's what's happened there, which has quite a significant impact on, you know, the overall. Whereas Leslie Pierce, 20 books sold, £28.83 net sales. because they've been under 2 kilo bundles. I think Leslie Pierce, quite often I sell 3 of hers at a time, so that makes them more profitable from that point of view. But it shouldn't mean that there's double the net sales almost for only one extra book getting sold. Again, it means that I want to go and look at that and dig a bit deeper, and if I'm selling everything on the buy 2 get 1 free as opposed to buy 3 get 2 free, is the profit that much of a difference? And it's sometimes difficult to see these things when you're just working out a bit of paper. It doesn't look that far apart until you see the reality and the results. So if all my Leslie Pierce sales have been buying 3 books at a time, and it means that I'm making nearly double the net sale value at the end of it, then there's another lesson in there. There's something else that needs to be thought about, and seen how it can push through. If I didn't have the buy 3 get 2 on, for example, Dilly Court, would I have sold just as many? Would I have had as many sales, selling 3 at a time as opposed to 5 at a time? Or maybe people would have bought 6 at a time, and then it would definitely go over in the postage. Yeah, quite a contrast between those two. But then when we look at Richard and Julia, so both of those sold 18 each. Richard Osman, net sales for that was £68.34 because first editions. Julia, £49.81 for 18 books sold because I've just got one price for all Julia Donaldson books, doesn't matter what they are. Richard Osman, though, despite having £20 more in total sale value, it only made me 96 pence more in net sale value at the other end. 45 quid selling cost compared to £27 selling cost. Again, postage is definitely a huge part of that there. It drags it up. So both of those books, both of those lots are as profitable as each other, but one costs more to process. So there's nothing I really particularly want to change with either of those. Julia Donaldson, I know, will just keep selling and selling and selling. I listed about another 40 or 50 just yesterday, because when I find one, I typically find loads. But for the same number of books sold, I'm making roughly the same net sales at the other end. So you kind of ignore the total sales and see what comes out at the far side. Now, the Richard Osman, £68 total sales, £23 net sales. That is actually my model. A third for eBay, a third for post, and a third for me. £23, 18 pence is a little bit, teeny bit more than a third of £68, 34 pence. So although that seems low, it does actually fit within my overall model, so I'm quite happy with that there. Julia, £49 for £22 net sales. That's, 46% that is coming out of that there, so that's even better. Now, if I keep scrolling on down, I can see there's not a huge variation beyond what I've already spoken about. So David Baldacci, for example, 16 books sold, £16 net sales. That's fine. Bernard Cornwell, 15 books sold, £21 in net sales. Why? Postage. Bernard Cornwell writes smaller books than David Baldacci, especially when you're looking at the paperbacks. I have taken a lot of David Baldacci, well, I've taken all the David Baldacci hardcovers out of that listing as well, so I know that's another one with no hardcovers in it. But again, 5 of his paperbacks can quite easily just creep over the 2 kilos, so it's a less profitable sale because I have to pay more in postage just to get them shipped out. So it's these ones where I'll be looking at David Baldacci, Dilly Court, where they're big books typically, where I might take them off of the 3 for 2 and stick them on the 2 for 1 offer and just have it balanced that way so that I'm maximising what I can do with them, see what impact that has on overall sales. But I'm only going to do that with a few authors just to see how it works out. But keeping going down the list, Jodi Picoult, 14 sales, £19 net sales. Robert Galbraith, so that's the other half of my J.K. Rowling listing, 14 sales, £23 net sales. Higher price on the books, first editions. Beyond that, there's really Not a huge difference in anything else. Jacqueline Wilson, 13 sold, £15 in net sales. Rankin, Ian Rankin that is, 12 sold, £17 in net sales. James Patterson, 12 sold, £17 in net sales. Harlan Coben, 11 sold, £18 in net sales. Stephen King, 11 sold, £18 in net sales. So it's very standard. I'm achieving round about £1 in net sales per book. Sometimes a wee bit more, sometimes a wee bit less, but easily sitting on that £1 mark all the way through. I know I'm not sharing the screen, I'm just talking about it, but that's how I'm rolling. Our total sales for March was only £4,450. So this isn't a huge business. I'm not kidding that one at all. Obviously, I'm working with quite a limited sample to talk about any of these things. But my net sales from that was £2,050, which means that the net sales is actually gone over 40%. So I worked assuming that 33% will be my net sales at the end of it. But at the moment, from what we're seeing here, it has gone over 40%, 46% in fact, I'm at there. But I need to take into account my other costs off of that before I get too excited. So I sold a total of 855 items. Now, the reason I've been saying lately between 25 and 30 pence a book is because I've been selling a few more pre-made bundles. It's not a huge part of what I'm selling, but there are a few more going out. So when I'm working out my cost against quantity sold, for the proportion of those that have more than one book in them, I'm pushing my average buy price up to 30 pence each to work out. So that 855 books times £0.3 means that £256 went on cost of goods. So that's what I needed to spend last month to replenish the stock that I sold. On top of that, I had, let's see, just work out my number of orders. I've also got packaging supplies that I take into account when I'm working it all out as well. The average sale price per item was 5, so that's keeping me, it's still roughly 4. Average order is roughly 4, which means I had about 215 orders, which times 0.2 is another 43 quid in packaging supplies. I'm going to call it 44 because that rounds it up very nicely to £300 that I've spent on additional costs out with fees, postage and the cost of goods, which means, let's just work this out, my total selling costs were therefore 2,700, and if we divide that by 4454, 60%. So even taking those costs into account, I'm still sitting at just under 40%. 39.4% is my profit from selling these books. So that's deducting eBay fees, all my selling fees, including my shop subscription, that's all included in there. All my postage costs, my packaging costs and my cost of goods leaves me roughly 40% of every sale is profit back into the business. Obviously I'm recouping the cost of goods sold as well, so there's more money available to spend to buy more things, but that 40% is a nice number. I can live with that. I just need enough sales to make it justifiable. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Just having a blather through, running through some of those authors that are selling well. They're definitely keeping moving. A few of the things that I'm going to look to change this month, going through this month, maybe taking a couple more authors, taking hardcovers off of a couple more authors, bundling them up separately or listing them up separately to see if it makes a difference that way. Looking at a couple of authors where I can maybe take away the buy 3 get 2 free and just have the buy 2 get 1 free deal sitting on them and see if that makes a difference to the sales. So authors with the bigger, heavier books. one last quick look at where we are this month so far, just to get an idea. So this month in April, we're April the 9th today, so far this month, because I have had stock available, I've already sold 31 Lee Child books, and that's had a return of £42.51 net sales. That's the net sales number, nearly £100 in total sales in that one. So as I said a few minutes ago, with authors like Lee Child, the more you've got, the more you can sell. If I had a few hundred of his books I managed to pick up, then I've got no doubt I would sell an awful lot more than 31 of them. So if you can get a good supply of those, they sell well, they sell fast, as long as you price them right, get them promoted right so people can see them. So they can be worth paying up a wee bit for, which is something I have actually been doing in the last few weeks. A couple of authors I've been paying a wee bit more just to pick them up, because I know I'll move them fast and the money will come back in. And it's such a small proportion of my overall buy, it's still keeping my average buy price nice and low. Of course, there's no point spending so much on a single book that, although your average price across everything is still low, you're actually making a loss on that book on its own. So always know where your top level is. And for me, it's about 65 pence. If I spend more than 65 pence on a typical book, you know, a kind of bread and butter book, then, you know, that's where it starts getting to the point where you're not really making anything on it. At 65 pence, I can still make 50 pence on that book if it sells for £3, along with other bits and pieces. But going above that, and it begins to get a bit sugary and shaky. So I know that's where my cut-off point is. But yeah, this month so far, Lee Child is on 31 after being 30 for the whole of last month, and that's simply because I've had quite a few of them available. Dilly Court's already on 17. So yeah, it all swings and roundabouts. And if authors that I've said I'm not picking these up anymore because I never sell them. Linwood Barclay this month, I've sold 13 Linwood Barclays. I think that's more Linwood Barclay books than I've sold in the last 6 months. I've sold in the last 6 days. Kate Ellis, haven't sold them for a while, they're moving. Geoffrey Deaver, hardly sold any Geoffrey Deaver books at all, and 11 of them have gone so far this month. Yeah, it's been interesting. Any other standouts as I go through this? No, everything else is pretty standard. Just lots of bundles of 5, a few bundles of 3, and everything is just ticking over. So anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Hopefully I'll be back with some sales tomorrow. Might be something more interesting, although everything that's come through so far again today, it's just your bread and butter bundles. Nothing huge to share and talk about. If I can get up early enough to talk about them before I have to take them off to the post office, I will do that. Otherwise, I'll see you soon. See you. Love you. Bye.